No Man's Sky, what a journey this game's had. From zero to hero, one of the greatest comebacks in gaming history. You may recall when this game first launched how overwhelmingly negative the feedback was due to how woefully mishandled the marketing was. Sean Murray in particular told a number of straight-up lies during the game's marketing trail, and one of the more infamous lies, for example, was how players, if they happened to be on the same planet out of the trillions or whatever that are out there, they'd be able to actually see each other, and Sean Murray didn't expect that to happen within the first couple of days after the game's launch, but I believe it was just basically the day after the game launched that people managed to actually meet on the same planet, and yet they discovered that there was no multiplayer functionality in place. Players could not in fact see each other, and that was just the tip of the iceberg. And generally, this was a game that was perceived as being wide as an ocean, but shallow as a puddle. In fact, you can see right here in this Reddit post with over 50,000 upvotes how No Man's Sky, just 2 months after launch, its review scores were overwhelmingly negative, if you just take into consideration recent reviews as of the publishing of this screenshot, and mostly negative reviews overall from 70,000 reviews. From the recent reviews alone, the review score was at a mere 12%. Mostly negative overall is better, but it was still pretty bad. If you check out Wayback Machine and rewind time all the way back to April of 2017, reviews were still at mostly negative at a mere 32%, which is still pretty damn bad. But over the coming months and years, all of that would change with Hello Games hunkering down and releasing free updates and expansions that would breathe new life to this game and turn it into something completely different than what it was at launch. Like, if you play No Man's Sky now, it is unrecognizable from its launch state. And that has led to this game finally achieving a brand new milestone. User reviews have finally gotten to a point where it's allowed No Man's Sky to gain a mostly positive review score of 70%. Think about that. From 30-something%, probably less in 2016, all the way up to a 70%, with recent reviews having been a lot more positive. And this is not a milestone that was lost on Sean Murray, who was very pleased by this achievement and celebrated it by tweeting out "you guys" with a crying emoji, showing the mostly positive review score of 70%. This is all reviews combined, both the negative ones from early on to the positive ones more recently. And if you look at the recent review score, we're looking at a 92% from recent reviews. And Sean Murray explained just how hard it was to actually get there. Moving to mixed took nearly 2 years. Moving to mostly positive has taken the last 3. Each all-time percent point is exponentially harder. 69% nice to 70% took nearly 10,000 positive reviews. Never thought would be here. We're incredibly grateful for players' continued support. And there is one post in particular that Sean Murray retweeted comparing what No Man's Sky looked like before versus what it looks like now. Clicking on the image, you can see the stark contrast here of overwhelmingly negative recent reviews and mostly negative overall reviews to very positive recent reviews and mostly positive overall reviews. And you can see just how many more reviews have been added, more than doubled since launch year, which goes to show just how many new players have come to No Man's Sky as the game has continued to improve and continued to spread positive word of mouth. And to really highlight just how much this game has evolved, I'd like to give you a rundown of the key updates and expansions that came out for this game and some of the key new features or enhancements that came with them, starting with the Foundation update that added base building and farming. Then that was followed up by Pathfinder, which added exocraft vehicles, which are essentially land vehicles that allow you to expediently traverse planets. They added Starship and multi-tool specializations and classes, new weapon modes, and the ability to own multiple ships. Then came Atlas Rises, which added roughly 30 hours of new story content alongside new side mission types and task varieties, new planetary biomes, enhanced economy and trading, and more. Then came the big update, No Man's Sky Next, which finally added co-op multiplayer with friends, third-person gameplay across the board, as well as character customization, as you actually had a character model now that you could see within your group of friends. Then came the Abyss, which added aquatic environments, exploration, and missions. Then came the Visions update, which added enhancements to the universe's diversity, essentially more biomes, new creatures, new flora and fauna, new environments, new things to find and discover, and more colorful worlds in general. Then came another major expansion, No Man's Sky Beyond, which expanded upon the multiplayer features, allowing you to encounter strangers and their character models. Alongside that, they also added a new social hub and multiplayer missions. They added full VR support on Steam and PlayStation. They added some new overhauls to base building, to NPCs, to tech trees. And with this expansion, we got the ability to ride creatures and harvest materials from them. Then came the Synthesis update, which added starship upgrades, terrain editing and terraforming enhancements, the ability to save custom outfits, as well as first-person mode for exocrafts, the land vehicles. Then came the Living Ship update, which added a new class of organic biological ships alongside new main story missions, as well as new space encounters and space NPCs. The Exo Mech expansion then added a new type of land vehicle, which are essentially just walking mechs, which are pretty badass. Then came the Crossplay update that allowed PlayStation, Xbox, and PC players to play together, followed by the Desolation update, which introduced procedurally generated horror-themed abandoned freighters to explore. Then came the Origins update, which added even more planetary diversity with new varieties of planets, biomes, flora and fauna, weather, buildings, and topographies. And they also added hazards like volcanoes, firestorms, meteors, tornadoes, lightning, and sandworms. Then came the Next Gen update, which does what you'd expect any Next Gen update to do: better graphics and performance, bigger multiplayer groups, and much more. And just like all of the updates and expansions that have come out for this game thus far, this Next Gen update was also free. Then came the Companions update, which added the ability for you to adopt, befriend, and customize an alien companion, followed by the Expeditions update, which added a new game mode called Expeditions, which is this structured, multi-phase, objectives-based mode where players have to work together to complete milestones. And at one point with this new mode, there was a crossover with Mass Effect Normandy, which was kind of cool. And for the last two updates, we've got Prisms, which is this big graphics refresh and upgrade for the game. And last but not least, the last expansion we got recently was Frontiers, which added Fallout 4-style planetary settlements to the game, and yes, you can create your own settlements with this expansion and update. And these are just the highlights. On top of all of that, along the way, the game got a wide variety of new content, continuous enhancements to existing features, graphics upgrades, quality of life improvements, resolutions to technical issues, and just so many things that I couldn't possibly list all of them in this one video. Just suffice to say, ladies and gentlemen, that Hello Games has definitely earned their comeback with the amount of effort and goodwill that they've put into the No Man's Sky expansions, and the fact that every expansion has been free, every update has been free, is what's the cherry on top, because they could have easily started charging for these expansions, but knowing the bad will that they initially generated and knowing that they have to win back trust and that they have to do right by those initial customers who bought a game thinking it was going to be one way but got something much more shallow, they decided that there shouldn't be any additional caveats, and the consumer friendliness of what followed No Man's Sky's launch on top of the quality content combined is what really makes this such a strong comeback. Now, that's not to say that we should completely ignore the fact that No Man's Sky's launch was what it was, a pretty major disaster, and that the marketing surrounding that game was riddled with deceit. We shouldn't be normalizing a trend where a game launches unfinished and shallow and broken and has to be fixed later and completed later. Because keep in mind that for every No Man's Sky or for every Final Fantasy XIV A Realm Reborn, you've got an Anthem. Not every game is able to make that kind of comeback, and when publishers rush a game, they're pretty much gambling with that game's fate, and I don't think that should be normalized just because No Man's Sky happens to be an instance where a strong comeback was possible, because that's not always going to happen. But a comeback is certainly better than nothing, and when a development studio, a company recognizes its mistakes and does a good job of making it up to us like No Man's Sky has done over the course of months and years, that certainly does deserve commendation. And the stark contrast here between the reviews at launch versus the reviews now tells the whole story. No Man's Sky is a game that people are now applauding, and it's crazy to think just how far this game has come along. And I can only hope that No Man's Sky can continue to be both a cautionary tale of what can happen when you mismarket your game and when you chew on more than you can swallow, and when you release a game that doesn't live up to what was marketed, as well as a model for what can happen when you do right by customers with a consumer-friendly business model and with layers of high-quality content that continues to give people new things to look forward to. So with all said and done, I gotta give it up to Hello Games. Things started out very rough, but they put the effort in to make that comeback, and this is a deserved comeback, and I hope they can keep this ball rolling. So huge congrats to Sean Murray and the team. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to conclude this video. This is One Man's Take. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on the comeback that No Man's Sky has made, both in terms of the quality of the game and the reception and goodwill surrounding it. Share your thoughts below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.